welcome back, and happy fall and happy family time and get-togethers and taking pies to your neighbors or whatever you're going to take to them. But today I'm going to show you how to make a homemade, well, kind of homemade cherry pie. And I'm going to show you how easy that is, because what we're going to do is we're going to make our own pastry crust, and I'm going to show you how easy that is to do in the food processor. But we're going to shortcut it just a little bit, and we're going to use store-bought cherry pie filling. Now, if you want to make your own cherry pie filling, check out that video, and I will link that below for you because there's nothing like it, you guys. Oh my word. Into the sifter, you have your all-purpose flour, and I like to sift mine even, I know it's going to go in the food processor, but I still like to sift it and just really incorporate that air. So you've got your flour in there, and then we'll add our salt. And the reason that we're going to do it this way, we're using unsalted butter. And that's really, really important, you guys. If you're doing your homemade pastry crust, use unsalted butter, or if you're using part shortening or all shortening, you're going to need to add that salt in, right? But if you're using butter, make sure that you use the unsalted butter, because butter, it varies in how much salt it has. I know that seems weird. You would think that salted butter always has the same amount of salt, but it doesn't. So you never know exactly how much salt you're getting in a recipe if you use the salted butter. And sprinkle in. You can use a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I use somewhere in the middle there. All right, and we're just going to gently incorporate that salt into the flour. Now, as you can see, I took 2 sticks of unsalted butter, cut them into cubes with my straight edge, and put them out on this little bread plate and put it back into the refrigerator for about 3 hours so that it got really, really good and cold and hard. Okay. All right, so into the food processor is going to go our flour. All right, you see I'm using every bit of that. Here's a funny thing about pastry crust. If your amounts are off, it can make your pastry crust tough. If your flour is off or your the butter or shortening is off, it really can have an impact on it. So that's just one of those times, and you guys know if I'm ever really excruciating about the amounts, you know there's a reason for it. We're going to start dotting our butter into that flour. Okay, now let's get this going just a little bit. Okay, I like to pulse that butter around just a little bit and then add the rest of it. And guys, you know what? If you don't have a food processor and you still want to make your own homemade pastry crust, never fear. Get you one of these. Seriously, I've been doing it that way most of my life. Works really good. I'm going to pulse this. I like to pulse it instead of running it on high, because that way I can better navigate how quickly that butter's being incorporated into the flour. And the goal here is to get it incorporated to the size of small peas. Okay, now all right, I'm going to show you guys. Now I want you to see the texture of that, and you can see the little bits of flour in there, and they're about the size of small peas. All right, that's what we want. Now we're going to add our ice water. Another little trick, I like to put my ice water in a little cup like this. I like to use large cubes of ice also, so that I can make sure that I don't get chips of ice down into my pastry crust. Okay, so a couple little things there. I also like to have something with a little handle on it so that I can hold that securely while I'm drizzling in the ice water. Now, you're going to have about a 1/2 cup, but that could be give or take, because the reason why is because you never know how much water content is actually in your butter, okay? So you have to go by eyeballing it, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, we're going to need just a little bit more ice water. Okay guys, now you see how it's beginning to come together on the fork here. See that? But I've still got a lot of loose pastry crust in the bowl of the food processor. That's telling me that I need just the tiniest bit more ice water. Okay, see how that's clumping together now? We should be good. All right, now that our pastry crust has come together, we're going to roll this out onto a board because we've got to fit it into discs and refrigerate it. Now, I'm not adding any flour to this at this point in time, okay? I'm just bringing this like this because I need to separate this into 2 halves. Now, 1 half on that side. You can do this with like plastic wrap, you guys. I like to use a wax paper or a parchment paper. And get them as round as, about as round as you can. I don't like to work with it too long though because I don't want the warmth from my hands to start melting that butter. And then put it like this and right into the refrigerator. All right, I'm going to clean this up a little bit while my pastry crust is chilling for about 30 minutes. Okay guys, our pie crusts are nice and cold. You can even hear how cold they are. See that? Love that. Okay, now we're going to take this out, flour the board, and that pastry crust is going to go right down on that flour. The other one, while we're working with this bottom crust, we're going to put this one back in the fridge. Keep it cold. A little bit extra flour here to work with. I like to really be careful how much flour that I get on my pastry crust because it really can make a difference in the texture of your crust. All right, out onto your floured board. Just take your rolling pin. Everybody has their own way of rolling one out, but in order to try and keep a circle, I have found that up on the left, down on the right, up on the left, down on the right seems to work the best for me. And I hear the oven beeping. Our oven is ready. Woo! And sometimes that happens. My edge got a little bit away from me there. We're just going to patch that together. And then we need a little bit more flour on the top of our crust. Just a little bit. We've got a 10-inch pie plate here. All right. Now, let me show you a little trick. To know how big you need to roll out your crust, take your pie plate and lay it, you can set it, but I like to just hover it over my pie crust and make sure that those edges are fully extended outside the edge of my plate, just like that. All right, now, this is something beautiful that happens when you take that 30 minutes to refrigerate your pastry crust. If you don't do that, it can, at this point in your life, it can be so crumbly that it's hard to get it to roll up like that. But you just like you saw there, you just flip that edge right over your rolling pin, holding the edge down with your thumb. You saw how I did that. You just roll it right up. Move your pie plate over and unroll over the top. And if it needs a little bit of adjusting, you just come into the sides and move it around a little bit. Okay? And what I'm doing here is I'm just making sure that that pastry crust goes all the way to the bottom of the pie plate on all the sides. Super easy. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to come along with a straight edge and we're going to trim off that pie crust. And we're going to trim the bottom one now because that top one is going to come over and go over the edge of that. So we don't need the extra here on the bottom crust. Okay, now that we've got our bottom crust in our pan and trimmed, we're just going to set that to the side and work on our top crust. Okay, another trick, guys, you can get out a measuring device to check the thickness of your crust to make sure that it's the same thickness all the way around. I just use a feeling method. I run my hands around the edge of the crust like that, and I can tell by the weight on my hands if it's thin in one spot or thicker in another. This is our top crust, right? So we have to make sure that we've got those edges ready to overlap on the sides so that we have room to crimp the crust. You guys, you can do the lattice top, the beautiful lattice top. It's like a basket weave across the top. You can just put your whole crust on top and cut little vents in it for the steam to come out like that. You can do that on the board if you want. You can do your little cutout decoration, whatever you want, on the board, then roll it up on your pin and put it over the top of your pie. We're going to kind of dress it up just a little bit extra today. Since we are doing this, I'm showing you guys how to shortcut this. You made your own pastry crust, right? But we're doing the store-bought filling. So we're going to dress up the top a little bit and just make it a little bit extra special. Remember, you want to flour your cutters. We're going to use this beautiful, look at this, you guys. Look how gorgeous that is. And I'm going to offset this just the slightest bit, but still hopefully right in the middle. Press it down equally on all sides. Give it a little wiggle, and that will help bring that cutter out. All right, coax it out. All right, now, see that? Beautiful leaf. We're going to save that. All right, since this is a cherry pie, a few little circular cutouts. Now, let's put the filling into our pie. And this is 2 large cans, guys. Unless you're making a very, very small pie, you're going to need this much filling. I know it looks like a lot, but trust me, it cooks down. Remember, if you're wanting this to be sugar-free or sugar alternative, I've showed you how to make your own homemade cherry pie filling, and I'll link that below for you, okay? So we're just going to set this right over here. Oh boy. I was afraid of that. I got it a little bit off center. Okay, there we go. Back in business. Okay, now going from the edge of the pan, we're going to cut off about, or I should say it this way, we're going to leave about about an inch or just shy of an inch on that. What we need is a little bit of flour for the old thumbs and fingers. All right? Flouring your fingers just slightly like that. Come in and begin to tuck your edge. And you can turn your pie plate just like that as you tuck and roll. Now, as you go through, you just lift that bottom crust just the slightest bit and tuck that top crust under it. Just like that. Now we're going to go through and crimp it with a thumb. This is called a thumbprint crust. This was the first one I learned at my mother's knee so many years ago. Okay, now let's get our egg wash ready. All right, now we have our egg wash, and all this is, guys, is just one very, very well beaten egg. And we're gonna just brush this lightly onto our pie crust. We're gonna sprinkle this with a little bit of sugar. And what this is gonna do, that egg wash is gonna bring this beautiful golden crust to our finished product. And the sugar is just gonna make it glisten in the most beautiful way. All right, now this is ready to go into our 325-degree oven. But before we do that, we're going to put it on a baking sheet lined with parchment. Because, remember this, guys, here's another little hack for you. Do this because your fruit pies are going to have a tendency to bubble over just a little bit. And if you've got it on a baking tray, it'll save you cleaning up your oven. All right, now 30 to 35 minutes should do the trick. But we're going to start keeping an eye on it at about 30 minutes. All right, now, while that is baking, we are going to do our little appliques, our little cutouts, with the egg wash and the sugar as well. We're going to put those into the oven and let them bake all the way through to done. And then, when the pie is about 10 minutes from being all the way done, we're going to pull it out, put these little appliques on real quickly, and finish it off. Well, guys, our cherry pie is out of the oven. Now, in total, it took about 45 minutes because one of the keys, another little hack for you, one of the keys when you're making a fruit pie to knowing that it is done, besides the fact that your crust is golden and all of that and baked through, is a fruit pie will generally bubble, the juices and the filling will generally bubble through the little vent holes at least a little bit when it's done. And that is a sign that it is cooked all the way through and ready to come out. Okay, another thing, you notice that we did the beautiful little appliques on there, and this is still super hot, guys, so I want to be really, really careful the way that I show you this. That's where we did the cutouts and the little vent marks in our crust, remember? If you are shortcutting something, but you really want to elevate it a little bit, that is a really beautiful way to do that and make it a little bit extra special when you didn't have the time to do every single element from scratch. Just a little notch that away. That'll help you, okay? Guys, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit that button. That really helps us out. And we'll have so much fun bringing you even more ideas on things Tina does. Bye-bye.